So we are still here in Lomé. Moued Youssouf. I think that I pronounced very well. Thanks for joining us for the panel.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, and we are also here with Nene Mburu, who is a participant. And he was a second panel talking about how to make Africa to be more free from geopolitical and also all kind of pressure that we have today. Also, that is making Africa to be more poor than before. So, and you were the moderator of the panel, and people say that Africa is poor because African people doesn't really know that they can take, that they can manage themselves from now and, to be more free from all the rest of the world. So what do you think about?
A continent that is so rich in history, tradition, resources, how can anybody say that that continent doesn't know how to manage itself? I think that's a fairly imperial way of looking at things. Look, Africa has had many problems. It continues to have many problems. Many African countries are very young in terms of their independence. 60, 50, 30, 70 years is not a long time. From what I've heard in the panel and all day, I think there's a lot of introspection, a lot of self-reflection among leaders in Africa. That is the starting point. You have to acknowledge the problem to fix the problem. But I do feel that maybe the conversation should not be about being free from the world or separate from the world. The future of the world is about interdependence, which means that we benefit from the others while they also benefit from us. So strategic autonomy of Africa will come when Africa is united internally. If African countries have a lot of internal conflicts and problems with each other, then obviously others will take advantage of that situation. So I think where the world is today, the kind of fluidity, the geopolitical tensions, there is an opportunity here. There is a new order that's coming, and countries in Africa must seize that opportunity. I think they will seize that opportunity, but the prerequisite is to be united internally. External elements will always try and take benefit. Nobody will fix Africa, nobody will fix Asia. It will only be the internal countries who will have to do it. That's why I think the leadership, it has to be joint, united on critical issues. Then you will find that strategic autonomy.
So the question right now is how to be autonome, as we used to say in French. So how to free to have our sovereignty when all big countries from the world, like China, like America, like France, all those countries want to have their own take of Africa. So how to be autonomous?
I will tell you, just for a second, forget about the external elements. Think about internally. What are problems that Africa can solve internally for itself without any outsider? Start from there, right? So, poverty is a big problem. Poverty needs a good economy for poverty to be elevated. But what about inequality? There is so much personal wealth in Africa. The rich are there, but many are poor. So the first thing I would do is to redistribute wealth to reduce inequality. When you reduce inequality, you will get more people included in the conversation, in democracy, in decision making, in governance. Then gradually you will find a united voice. I think if I were to pick one thing, it would be working on inequality within Africa. That will automatically reduce poverty, but that will also empower those who do not have a voice today. And then you will see that a collective Africa will make it impossible for anybody else to take advantage of the continent.
So now I want to ask a question to Nene Mburu. So you participate and you have heard everything that was going on in the panel, and we just one question is that, so how Africa can free himself from, from imperialism countries like China, no, like America, or maybe all countries that want to take his natural resources. So what can you say from that way?
Let me first of all go back to the question you asked earlier.
All right.
In terms of Africa has been subjected to a lot of stereotypes.
Please, can you bring your microphone close?
Yeah, Africa has been in the past subjected to a lot of stereotypes that Africans are this, Africans are not capable of doing that, that has to change. And the people to change that is the youth, especially the youth of Africa. Their engagement with the youth in every part of the world is at a level the older generation did not have. The question you raise in terms of Africa going forward and looking after its people and resources, it comes back to governance. If you have governance, leadership that is competent, leadership that is constructive, the issue of the resources being taken away or Africa being taken advantage of because of its resources, that will not arise. Because the decision making in terms of benefiting from those resources, making sure the resources are benefiting the people, the investment is wise, the investment is meaningful, the investment takes into account the people's priority. All that will come from good leadership. And that's what is the struggle with Africa right now, is governance.
So when we are talking about governance, we are talking about also, some meetings like this one that promote governance. So do you think that Lomé Peace and Security Forum, and especially this second edition, have a lot to learn in terms of governance to African leaders?
What is impressive, most impressive about this convention is the transparency and the openness. The openness in terms of people speaking freely, even heads of state. They were not trying to sugarcoat what they're saying. They're saying the real things which are on the ground. And to me, that is a step in the right direction. They are not holding back. They're not out to please people and say that it's all nice and smooth. They spoke to issues which people are facing today, and they know that to be the real problem of Africa. To me, that is a step in the right direction.
Yes, you want to add something?
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think if I were to take away one thing, as I started when you asked the first question, is introspection. They know where the problem is. They're saying there is a problem. They're not saying we've done everything right. And now it's a question of how to fix it. And if you identify the right problem, 80% of the battle is won already. Now the challenge, and this is a challenge across the developing world, is implementation of the policies and decisions. You have the Lomé Charter, you have the Africa Peace and Security Architecture, you have the Silencing the Guns initiative. That's where I think you need to now focus on implementing what already has been decided. At least what I heard today, I thought it was fantastic, the leadership this morning. I think they were very clear where they need to go. Now it's just about implementing that, and I think that's where I feel you have to take all your people along. You can't have only the rich making decisions for everybody. And that's inequality to me, is the make or break if Africa has to go forward.
I would like to add one more thing. We have institutions which are borrowed from the Europeans, institutions like the judiciary. If we cannot reform the judiciary so that it is not in the pocket of the executive or in the pocket of the rich and powerful, that would be a step in the right direction in terms of eradicating corruption. But now we must try and sanitize ourselves. Like during COVID, when you are sanitizing, we need to sanitize the politics we have. We need to look at accountability in terms of leadership and hold them to account. If we cannot do that, we'll always be remaining a step behind. In security, we'll have a step behind. In education, we'll be a step behind. In healthcare, we'll be a step behind in infrastructure development.
So I will be back to ask a question about what can be the approach in our international relation with super power countries like America or China. But I will just give you the microphone, Mr. Biben, for you to ask more questions.
Yeah, thank you very much. We equally want to find out, Africa seeks autonomy with its problem resolving with its institutions, but you look at institutions like the African Union, it's not very autonomous. It's still having influence from the West. Is a structure or a platform like the Lomé Peace and Security Forum, do you think it has what it takes to sustain itself without being influenced from outside?
Outside? I think from what I've seen, this was a meeting of independent thinkers. Nobody coming here was sponsored, go there and say ABCD. And that freedom, embracing that, it's a risk a country is taking in terms of inviting people like us, because we will say what is in our mind, and he'll say what he thinks. He's not going to be told, say this and don't say that. There's no holds barred. That is very, very important. If only we can have a mechanism of implementation. You've spoken about the AU, African Union. The African Union is good, but it gets sometimes held to ransom because of finance. And then it has to borrow or be maintained, and then feel like they can't go far enough because they don't have the capacity in terms of resources. They have the human resources, but finance is something where they need to be stable.
Let me say something provocative.
Sure.
I think we focus too much on independence from the rest of the world. The future of the world is going to be interdependence. What is happening right now is that the US is pulling back from the liberal order. This is an opportunity for countries who did not benefit from the past 70 years. This is a challenge, but it's definitely an opportunity. China-US contestation will grow. And what you will find is many, many middle powers trying to come together around the world. So if I am looking at the African continent and the countries in Africa who matter to lead the continent forward, they should be looking at partnerships with other countries around the world, in Asia, in Africa, even in Europe and the West. We have to find countries who will provide benefit through partnerships but not exploit. Now let's come to the question of exploitation. Exploitation will only happen if there are leaders and domestic elements who allow that exploitation to take place. So I think rather than focusing too much on how the others are exploiting, we should focus on how not to be exploited. Because look, the powerful are always going to look to exploit. That's the nature of the business of international relations. But with the kind of strength in natural resources and numbers that Africa has, there's a great opportunity in today's world to partner with multiple countries. If you partner with multiple countries and diversify your partnerships, you will be able to push back against the pressures of those who want to exploit much more easily than if you keep waiting as an independent entity trying to find your own way. In today's world, that is going to be impossible, especially when so many African countries are so indebted in terms of finances, right? So you need that money from somewhere. You have to partner with like-minded countries, come together, and then seek your right.
Yeah. When he talks about partnership, we can look at the capacity to partner. We understand that African countries, individual countries, don't have what it takes to have that bargaining power. And many believe that Africa needs to speak in one voice. Coming together is going to help them have that bargaining power. But then we see Africans having that challenge in speaking in one voice. Where do you think where is the problem from?
Again, that's a very good question. As a military historian, I reflect back on the formation of Pan-Africanism, the Organization of African Unity when it was launched. The aims of the founding fathers was to have one voice, one bargaining power. But the way we have diversified, we have to also take into account that Africa is diverse. African countries are sovereign. They decide individually what they want, what is in the best interest of their people. Then there will be a convergence, hopefully, at the continental level. But it's like other countries of Europe. They don't have, you might talk of the European Union as one body, but individually, they're doing bilateral trades here and there. One of the challenges we have had within the economic integrations in Africa is having countries one foot in and one foot out. because they are looking after their own people and they see that the needs of the people are not met 100% within the economic integration they belong. And that cannot change. It is the same in other countries. And I don't know how we can, and it's not evil, there's nothing wrong with that. We may have one power. I know there's talk of the UN opening up, or people asking for the UN to open up so that we can have at least 2 African countries permanent members of the Security Council. I'm not sure that's going to happen. But if that were to happen, that will give Africa a stake in terms of vetoing decisions which go against the continent. But I don't know, we are still a long way from that.
And when we look at one of the focus of the forum has to do with the conflict in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. We look at equally the fact that many believe that the resources which are in the Eastern DRC benefits external powers, and we're looking at solutions in resolving this crisis from Africa. Do you think we can achieve those solutions without the involvement of those who benefit from the resources which are found in that region?
Maybe, maybe not. If you have internal strength and a conversation which is committed to resolving conflict and violent conflict. We just heard today the role of Togo, the role of South Africa, other countries. You know, one way of looking at this is within the African continent, there are definitely best case examples. There are definitely success stories. There are definitely countries that have done better than others. Let's focus on what they have done to achieve the success that they have, because they've also achieved that success despite the outsiders, right? I think we have to be clear. Every country that has grown in the developing world in the past 70, 80 years has grown despite all those pressures. Those pressures did not disappear, but they figured a way out to come together domestically and grow despite those external pressures, not only in Africa, but in Asia, in Latin America, and in many countries. And so I think it can be done. There is no reason it can't be done. Those who are benefiting externally are also using domestic actors to benefit. They are not there themselves. So if the domestic actors can be brought together through some deals, through some incentive, through some benefits, then I think that can happen. And it has happened in Africa. Africa has got a very rich history of resolving disputes the African way, and I think that could again be done.
Despite this, we understand Africa is on the crossroad in this shift in geopolitics, and there's desperate rush from these outside superpowers who want to gain positions or places in Africa. Many believe it's a form of a new scramble that we're observing. With regards to this scramble from these superpowers and the ambition of Africa trying to, gain its autonomy with the change in this geopolitics, do you see this as a possibility, and how sustainable can Africans go with this?
It's hard to say, because we have something they want. They have something we want. And the decision making is delegated to the sovereign state. As much as we see there's a problem in Congo, Congo can choose a partner and the rest of Africa can do nothing about it. But we have a collective approach in terms of leadership, and that's why I'm going back to governance. A governance that will see, here I'm leading my people into a death trap. I'm benefiting another person, I'm benefiting another country. And let's face it, there's nothing wrong with partnership. You can partner with the superpower, you can partner with the neighbor, but you must do it wisely. Are you in a partner as a subservient partner, or are you an equal partner? Are you gaining? You as a country, not you as a leader. I think that's the way forward. But we maybe sometimes read too much into the issues, like what we were talking about today in terms of transition into clean energy. We have the resources. If we have the good governance that can use that lithium, which they're coming for and uranium they're coming for in DRC and other places of Africa, why can't we use it to enrich our power plants? Why don't we have African countries invest in nuclear energy, for peaceful nuclear energy, to ease the problem of power failure? There's power failure almost in every city in Africa. It happens. I've never seen power failure in London for 35 years, even 1 second. Not that there are no problems. There are problems, but the state has made sure that if in the event of this happening, there's a backup and you not notice this power failure. We can do that in Africa. We have the wind, we have the solar, more sun than any other continent maybe. And we have water, we have uranium, we have thermal energy. If we have proper governance, we'll be able to make sure that the resources we have benefit our own people. And then the talk with being exploited will be non-existent.
So Yusuf, you want to add something?
All I can tell you is, as somebody who's not from Africa, but comes from the developing world, I think the positive and the negative is people are very hard on themselves. They're seeing problems. I think we should not spend one more second talking about problems. We should just focus on the solutions and the implementation of the solutions. I tell you, I think Africa has better policy frameworks than any part of the world. You've come up with consensus. You have done things that other continents and other countries have not been able to do. Apart from Europe, there are very few examples of common currencies. Very few examples where you've got a peace and security architecture agreed. You have the Lomé Charter agreed. It is just about implementing what your leaders have already decided is the right thing to do. And even if half of that is done, you will see governance kick in. Once governance kicks in, this worry about sovereignty, autonomy, all of this will disappear, because already with better governance, your bargaining position will be so much stronger with the rest of the world, they won't be able to take advantage.
Yeah, maybe one last and quick question. When you look at countries in Africa, 15 of them still tied to France, the former colonizer, with the aspect of they don't have the power to decide on the power of their currency, they were still using the franc CFA. When you look at aspects like this and the ambition towards autonomy, is this still possible?
You know, when you run a marathon, today you decide you want to run a marathon. You can't run. You have to train, you have to practice, and then you get to 2 miles and 4 miles, and then finally, right? To ask for the kind of autonomy that we are talking about when we have just decided that we are going to run a marathon will not happen. Once you start training and you start running and you start getting distance, then people will not laugh. People will say you are a genuine contender. And those who are not taking you seriously will start taking you seriously, right? That's the difference. I think everybody knows that strategic autonomy is important. Everybody knows that there are problems of dependence in Africa. If Africa takes the step of implementing the policy decisions that it's taken through the charter, through the architecture and others, you will already see others realize that you are serious about running the marathon. And then either they will have to treat you as an equal, or they would have to work harder to win. Both are good outcomes, right? That's where I think the difference is. Just coming together to implement your policy decisions as leaders, governance will come in. Once governance comes in, it's like you're already running a marathon. Nobody will be able to take you without taking you seriously.
Thank you very much. Let me get your opinion on that. France still, many believe that the France CFA has held hostage the development of the countries that are using this France CFA. What do you think? Just maybe your...
That may be true. That's an integral part of neocolonialism. But going back to the question you asked about strategic autonomy, that's also relative. You cannot one day, like you said, in terms of training to achieve a level, you can't one day kick in and you're strategically autonomous in everything. And that's where interdependence comes in. I will need something you have, you need something I have. That trade-off, I have to accommodate that within my autonomy. But it's my decision. The autonomy now coming in, me deciding, not you deciding for me, that this is what you want, this is what you must have. And that's why, again, when it comes back to democracy, you have some developed countries which have questionable democracy. But when you talk about Africa, it's like you have no democracy there, and we got to be realistic. Let's not be too hard on ourselves, but we are on the right track, especially with a conference like this. We are on the right path.
We are on the right path, Mr. Nene, Mr. Yusuf. Thank you very much for talking to Afrique Media, the Pan-African Television.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
And stay with Afric Media viewers. We are still here in Lomé. We appreciate you for continuing watching us. Stay with us.